Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the interviews. In today's video, we're going to briefly analyze the manner in which Michael Olise shifted Bayern's attack in their 5-1 win over RB Leipzig. So when we break it all down and we do look at the board, we have Bayern in a 4-2-3-1, and the main changes here were that they had Karl playing from the right, Goretzka and Pavlovic just in behind Gnabry, and then Ito and Bischoff operating as fullbacks. You had RB Leipzig in more of a 4-2-3-1, but out of possession they were a 4-4-2, and here we're going to break down the contrast in how Bayern were able to attack down the right-hand side in the opening half in comparison to the second half, and it was briefly explained through Olise's introduction. So here we're going to focus solely on Bayern's attacking shape, and in tomorrow's video we'll focus on the issues that they had out of possession. The interesting factor here was that similar to their win in midweek, what we witnessed from Bayern was that they didn't invert their fullbacks, and they ensured that their central midfielders remained in central zones. So they had their fullbacks out in the wider positions serving as outlets to receive the ball, and in many scenarios you witness Pavlovic and Goretzka in central positions and Gnabry dropping off deeper and towards the midfield zone as well and not looking to receive the ball between the lines. Ultimately, the varied movements shifted between Gnabry and Pavlovic because there were scenarios where Pavlovic simply dropped to receive the ball ahead of the Leipzig front two, or he'd shift into the inside right position as well to receive the ball, and that's probably the only time you'd see Bischoff looking to invert. On other occasions when Pavlovic dropped in towards that zone, Bischoff would push higher up the pitch, and then there were times where you witnessed Gnabry dropping deep in towards his own half to get on the ball in midfield zones, or he'd shift in towards that inside right position as well if Pavlovic remained central. Ultimately, there are several examples where you witness a very narrow and compact Leipzig 4-4-2 sitting in that central zone, ensuring that Bayern couldn't play in towards those areas and leaving them with no options to play the ball in towards Harry Kane or Gnabry, and forcing them out in towards the wider areas to get the ball to the fullbacks or simply looking to play balls over the top, and we didn't witness that on a consistent basis throughout the opening half, as they were often looking to play the ball out towards the fullbacks and attempting to get the wide players into 1v1s. This is where you often saw the ball shifted over towards the right-hand side to either Bischoff or Karl, but in many of those scenarios you witness Bischoff not looking overly eager to push forward down that right-hand side, and Karl would be receiving the ball in 1v2s. There were scenarios where Karl would shift into more of a half-space position in the gap between the center back and the fullback, and that would allow Bischoff to receive the ball higher up the pitch down the right touchline zone, or you'd simply witness Karl in a deeper position looking to pick up the ball and help advance the positioning of the fullback. So what often ended up happening here was that he was looking to get the ball in towards his left foot and cut in towards central areas, and from here was simply just down to the execution, because when he cut in towards those zones he wasn't able to get shots off on target, and when he was looking to deliver the ball from deeper positions he was failing to connect with his teammates. Now yes, there were scenarios from deeper positions or in transition where he'd be able to clip balls over the top and get his teammates into legitimate goal scoring positions, and in those situations they did waste it. But in terms of him against a set drilled defense looking to cut on towards his left foot, he was often wasteful when he looked to cut in towards those zones, and he would lose possession by being crowded out, or when he looked to play vertical passes or penetrative passes in behind, he failed to connect with his teammates when he came up against a set defense. Ultimately, due to minimal movement from Bischoff on the overlap, and on the times when he did make underlapping runs they were tracked, what ended up happening for Karl here was that his only real impact in the final third stemmed with quick combination plays through short passes that were around the penalty area, but he failed to have an impact in terms of creating legitimate goal scoring opportunities for his teammates when he came up against that Leipzig 4-4-2 when they were set. Now this is not to say that Karl didn't have any sort of impact within that opening 55 minutes or so, and what ended up happening here was that his two brightest moments stemmed when Bayern were trying to bypass the Leipzig press, both down the right-hand side, first through Upamecano and then through Bischoff, and in both scenarios you were able to see him gain separation from the Leipzig left back and then run off the Leipzig left back, or be able to have the time and space to play a square pass and then from there place teammates in positions where they can help bypass the very high line. And on the situation where he was able to break free, what ended up happening there was that through Gnabry and Kane helping bypass those center backs, they played in Karl free, and from here he either should have shot or played in a pass early for a Diaz tap-in, but his opted route ended up seeing him play the ball just beyond Diaz, who was breaking towards the 6-yard area. Therefore, when you look at it from a Leipzig perspective, they're in that 4-4-2. They're ensuring that Bayern can't play through the center of the pitch, and they're doing a very good job of ensuring that Bayern can't create overloads or quick combination plays down the right-hand side. You have to question how Bayern were able to shift the game, and it must say that Kimmich's ability to play diagonal balls out towards the wider areas through his passing ability did play a key role, but ultimately Olise having so many goal contributions was the deciding factor here. But when you look at how Bayern were positioned following those two substitutions, it followed a similar template. They still had their central midfielders in those deeper positions. They still weren't inverting their fullbacks, and frankly, they were still having issues playing through the center of the pitch. So both positionally and stylistically, there weren't any major changes from Kompany here, but what you ended up seeing from Olise was that he offered varied threats down that right-hand side, as he wasn't solely looking to cut on towards his left foot to serve as a creative or a goal threat, but he was also capable of carrying the ball towards the byline and presenting crosses or pullbacks in towards the penalty area to test that Leipzig backline. Ultimately, in many of the scenarios when the ball was played out towards that zone and he was looking to combine with Bischoff or simply get the ball on towards his left foot to shoot, he often failed to have any sort of impact. But you can look to the opening chance to see the contrast between him and Karl from a creative aspect, as Kimmich switches out the ball towards him, and when he receives it, you have Bischoff making an underlapping run, so they combine, and it allows Olise to receive the ball at the edge of the box, and you could see him drag 3 defenders towards him, and he ends up taking 3 out of the game to play an incisive pass around the center back for Kane making that blindside run between the 2 center backs, and it places Kane in a position where he tests the goalkeeper. But when you look to Bayern's best opportunities, and we could start with the second goal, it's simply Olise carrying the ball towards the left back, drawing markers towards him, and then carrying the ball towards the byline and looking for outlets at the back post. Here he was lucky that Baku did slip when Kane received the ball, and it allowed space, the time, and space to push the ball on towards his right foot as Baku recovered, and Kane was able to fire an unstoppable effort from point-blank range. Nevertheless, prior to Bayern's onslaught, what you ended up witnessing was that whenever Olise was able to run at the left back and carry the ball towards the byline, he did a much better job than Karl in terms of placing his teammates in legitimate goal-scoring positions, and frankly, he did play a key role in Bayern getting over the hump here. Yet it must be said that while Kompany and Olise are deserving lots of credit here for the result and shifting the game, the build-up to the following 3 goals following Kane's winner did stem in transition, where Bayern were able to exploit the space that Leipzig left looking to chase the game. The first one stemmed with Kimmich clipping the ball over the top, and you ended up seeing the left back carrying it in towards the penalty area and squaring the ball towards Olise, who forced the keeper into the save. And then following that, he was able to deliver the set piece that witnessed Tag get across his marker at the front post to help Bayern increase their lead. The fourth goal witnessed Upamecano winning a loose ball that was directed in towards Kane in Bayern's half, and Kane was able to locate the large amount of space in Leipzig's half to clip it over the top for Olise, and Olise was able to carry the ball in towards the penalty area and square it across the 6-yard box for a late run from Pavlovic. And then Davies was able to play a ball around the Leipzig defenders to have Luis Diaz carrying the ball freely in towards the Leipzig third, and from here is able to carry it in towards the penalty area, square it into the path of Musiala, who was then able to square it in towards the path of Olise, who provided a first-time finish emphatically. So as you can see, this wasn't the perfect performance from Bayern, and we'll get into the issues they encountered in tomorrow's video. But here, the nuance in how Olise aimed to attack in comparison to Lennart Karl from the right side proved decisive in helping Kompany's men gain enough of an advantage to pull away from Leipzig.